The screen down.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about ketogenic diets for dogs. And just a brief introduction for those who don't know us. I'm Charisa. This is my sister, Carmina. We are the co-founders of CocoTherapy. And we have been in the coconut oil industry for 3 generations. So you can say we know a lot about fats and lipids, especially medium chain fatty acids, because that is definitely our passion.
Right. So before we get started into whole ketogenic diets for dogs, just a brief history. It was used clinically for nearly 100 years as a therapy to control seizures in children with drug-resistant seizure medication. So it gained popularity by Greek doctors as an effective treatment back in 1920s for epilepsy. Mm-hmm. In fact, Dr. Russell Wilder from the Mayo Clinic, he was the doctor that coined the term ketogenic diets, and he used extensively to treat epilepsy. There was a cancer research that began decades ago with a German biochemist named Otto Warburg, and he discovered that cancer cells rely heavily on sugar and carbohydrates for energy. So in order to starve cancer cells, you feed the body with fats instead. So clinical trials show that lowering glucose levels in the blood, cancer's primary fuel source, can slow the growth of tumors and the growth and progression of tumors.
Yeah, there is a lot of research that has been done on keto diets, both for cancer and for seizures, which is really exciting. So let's jump right in and let's talk about basically what is a ketogenic diet. So as we know, it's basically a diet that's very high in fat, has adequate protein, and it's very low in carbs. So the dietary fat basically replaces carbohydrates as a primary source of fuel. So the goal here is to switch the body's natural fuel source from carbs, which is what most of our bodies and our animals' bodies will do, and switch it to fats. So when carbs are restricted, this forces the liver to break down the fats into ketones. It becomes more effective, and then that energy is used, the ketone energy is used by the tissues of the body. And it basically starves tumors. So when your body have a lot of ketone levels in your blood, this is called a state of ketosis.
Now, keto diets for dogs are actually very highly acceptable by dogs because fats actually increase palatability in foods. Mm-hmm. So it's not difficult to put a dog on a keto diet. But when you do put your dog on a keto diet, you must monitor their caloric intake.
And
very carefully.
As a side note, when you put your dog on a keto diet, or even for humans, because we do it when we do keto cycling, you will lose weight. That's why it's very important to monitor the calorie intake. So you want to make sure if you want to keep him at the optimal weight, his maintenance level, check it, because when you first start the keto, he will probably drop in weight and you may have to adjust his intake or the food percentages.
And another thing to remember is to switch up food sources. You need a good variety just to ensure that they're getting the proper macro and micronutrients. And another thing you should do is monitor their weight, is the blood ketones. You need to monitor that. At the very end, we're going to let you know what you can use to monitor the blood ketones. Mm-hmm. And ketosis, a metabolic state, begins around 3 to 4 days after removing the carbs and sugar from the diet.
Yeah. So it happens pretty quickly.
It really does.
You don't have to be in the keto diet for a week before it happens. It literally happens in 4 to 5 days. So what I tell people when they want to start their dogs on a keto diet is to start slow. So basically you ease into the diet so the dog gets accustomed to eating lower carbs and higher fats. And this will just be a smoother transition for the dog. Especially most of the diets out there, if they are on a kibble or they're very high in carbs. Mm-hmm. So they need to make that adjustment. Mm-hmm. And also depending on the dog's health status or his gut health, sometimes increasing fats too soon may cause GI distress.
I say that because I do my dogs on a ketogenic diet I cycle her through. She's healthy. She's 6 years old. But in my opinion, she's very used to fats. I give her a typically high fat diet with coconut oil, so that when she goes on a keto diet, when I do the keto cycling for her, she doesn't have any of the GI distress, the nausea, or the diarrhea. So it's really getting your animal accustomed to fats.
Right. And you'll see too. So I always tell people, I want to increase even the fat level. Maybe they don't want to use the word ketogenic diet because that word scares them, but they say they want to increase the fat, and they see a lot of benefits because your body loves fats. The cells love fat for energy. The gut loves fat. So I tell people, start in a modified keto diet. So do 70 to 80% of the calories, make them come from fat, roughly 25 to 30% of calories from protein, and do about 3 to 7% of calories from carbs. So that's sort of a modified, that would be a higher fat diet, right?
Right.
So then you make adjustments. So observe your dog, and then you see improvements happening. Like he has more energy, he's brighter, they're literally sharper, they're not as sluggish. You can see their skin and coat get better. So, and then you can see too, when your dog is tolerating the higher fat content, you can move on.
Right.
And like, look at their stool too. That's a great,
And a lot of people say, well, if I give my dog a high fat in their diet, they get instant diarrhea. Well, that's probably because they're starting too quickly. So the minute they can tolerate the fat content, then you can move on to ease them onto a higher fat content.
Right. So here's plan A. Okay, so plan A, we broke it down a little bit. So for a ketogenic plan A, say you have a healthy dog, they don't really have a history of disease, or they don't necessarily have cancer, but you just want to put them on a keto healthy lifestyle type of diet. So on this diet, you will calculate and make sure that they're getting 69% calories from a healthy raw fat. And we're going to get into the fats a little bit more later. Get 30% calories from an animal-based protein, and their net carbs will be 1%. So you can see how low the carbs is. When you deplete the body of carbs, your liver will be forced to get the energy from fat, convert that fat into energy. So this is for just healthy dogs. You want to go on a keto, and you can kind of cycle them. You can do this and do whatever food you're feeding them. For one of my Yorkies who really didn't need to be on a keto diet, I would do this for her. And there's recipes out there for homemade keto diets, and cycle her with her regular raw food. So now plan B, this is for disease management. So then you move further, right? So these would be for dogs with cancer, with seizures, history of any disease. So what we say is, okay, so you start slow, put them on plan A for about 1 to 2 weeks until you see that the dog is responding really well to the diet. And then you increase the percentage of fat. And I just want to make note that when you increase the percentage of fat, this is independent of increasing or decreasing the calories, okay? So at this point, you determine what's the total number of calories your dog should be having on a daily basis. For example, if you have a little dog and they have to get a number, 500 kilocalories a day, that stays consistent. If you know that's what's maintaining their weight, then you have to increase the fat to 82% calories from a healthy raw fat. The protein will be 17% calories from an animal-based protein. And again, the net carb stays the same at 1%. Calories from net carbs. So this is great this is the basic keto diet for disease management. So for dogs with cancer, this plan B is adequate. There's no need to increase calories from fat. And this already encourages adequate ketone production and will suppress blood glucose as well. This diet, keto diets, are excellent for dogs on diabetes too.
Right. Yeah. They've actually had studies back. There's a doctor, Minnie Peterman. She formulated for humans the classic 4-to-1 ratio ketogenic diet.
Right.
And she documented the positive effects of ketogenic diets, not just for cancer or seizures, but they actually studied benefits for neurological disorders, Alzheimer's, obesity, dementia, diabetes as well, heart disease, allergies, arthritis, and a host of digestive problems. So it's actually been shown to be extremely beneficial for more than just cancer or seizure control.
Right. Now, This is a very extreme keto plan C, and this is very good for seizure management. So if you have a dog who has seizures, whether it's epilepsy or idiopathic seizures, where the seizure meds aren't helping, or you need to give it that help to help control seizures, you will increase the fat even further here. So here it's 87% calories from a healthy raw fat, 12% calories from an animal-based protein, and again, 1% calories from carbs. Now, I want to make sure I say that you please work with your veterinarian and a good integrative vet that understands a ketogenic diet, or a certified animal nutritionist if you are using this diet as a plan C, B, and C, both. If you're going to use it for a metabolic therapy for either cancer or seizure control. Seizure management, just recently this year, there's been a lot of studies done on MCT fats and seizure management. Here, I have some here. There's I have a whole list. Can you guys see this? Yeah, of course, right? But anyways, a whole list of studies, and we've posted some of them on our Facebook page, and it's unbelievable. They will take groups of dogs, and some of them will have reduced seizure frequency, and some of them have stopped seizuring altogether. So it's very promising study.
And the clinical trials and the clinical studies for children with seizures, 95% of the patients studied had improved seizure control, and about 60% were seizure free. So this is just how powerful the ketogenic diet is for seizure management. But okay,
so let's look at ingredients for the diet.
For fats. So pretty much fats needs to be the primary source of energy and calories in a ketogenic diet. So you should use a variety of fat sources. Pure fat sources, which includes oils, those fulfill the fat macro recommendations. So some examples of this would be olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oil, grass-fed butter. Those are even omega fish oils. So those are good fat sources of oils. Then there's also animal-based fats. You would choose meat that is higher in fat content, such as pork belly or jowls, that they provide high amounts of fat, but they also include small amounts of protein. So you need to take this into consideration when calculating your protein percentages, because these fats also contain protein. You can also use plant-based fats, such as nuts and seeds. They provide healthy fats in addition to carbohydrates. So again, you need to take in consideration the amount of carbs, because it's only 1% when you feed nuts and seeds to your animals.
Right. And I also want to mention, Carmina, about the animal-based fats. So if you notice, we keep saying raw source of raw proteins and raw fats, right? And the reason why we think raw fats are best is because meats, proteins, poultry, eggs, they contain arachidonic acid and myristic acid, which these are polyunsaturated fats. And they are, because they have double bonds, they are prone to oxidation.
Right. They're extremely heat sensitive.
Yeah. So they break down in heat and oxygen. So if you take these meat fats and then you cook them, it's fine to cook them lightly, I would say, and very quickly.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, not everybody's comfortable with a raw. When you do that, just bear in mind the polyunsaturated fats are
very sensitive. They oxidize easily.
Right. And they can be pro-inflammatory for the
So
animal.
when you feed your animals oxidized fats, that's when they're being pro-inflammatory. They can cause some issues there with digestive issues, pancreatitis would be some of them. So which is why we always recommend using raw fats. That way they're not oxidized when you feed them to your animals.
So protein, so use higher fat proteins. Obviously, this is about 82% of calories. Oh, sorry, not 82. 17% of calories should come from protein. So you can also use organ meats. So organ meats can contribute to the protein macronutrient recommendations.
Organ meats meaning heart, liver, kidneys.
Yeah. So it provides obviously beneficial vitamins and minerals. So, but just remember that organs are high in protein and low in fat. So they should be fed in small amounts, because you don't want to bring the protein up too much. And examples of this would be like the 70-30% or 80-20% ground beef. They like ground lamb, pork butt, pork heart, and beef liver are also really good organs.
Yeah. Also, duck is also a high fat type of protein. Salmon is also high fat.
Oh, did you say duck?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, duck.
Duck. Yeah, duck. And salmon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to carbohydrates in a ketogenic diet, you would like to keep this to 1% as their diet. But when you choose carbs, we recommend choosing vegetables that is high in fiber. For example, leafy greens. They're beneficial in their phytonutrients, but they are very low in net carbs. Other examples would be broccoli or cabbage, spinach, kale, asparagus. Chia seeds are also great to add to their diet because they also provide additional fiber. We recommend giving 1 tablespoon per 40 pounds for a dog. Now, coconut fiber is also a great source of carbohydrates. It's keto friendly because 1 ounce of coconut fiber actually has 2.1 grams of net carbs. In addition to this, coconut fiber some, depending on the source or the type of coconut fiber you give, it actually contains medium chain fatty acids. So coconut fiber, unlike some other carbohydrates, actually has a fat content.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's a wonderful fiber to give to your animals.
Yep.
So supplementation. Now, it's very important that you provide supplements when your animal's on a keto diet because mineral, sodium requirements will increase on a keto diet. So when you make their food, you can lightly salt their food for added sodium. Mm-hmm. So encourage your dog to drink water because when they are on a keto diet, their insulin level will drop. That's because they don't have as much carbs. You know, when you're on a regular diet with high carbs, that's when your when your pancreas will produce insulin to break down the carbs, which will convert to sugar. So the insulin levels will drop. The kidneys will be triggered to excrete excess water, and then that will lead to electrolyte loss. So it's very important to give a mineral supplement with potassium and magnesium.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, we want to specifically talk about virgin coconut oil because we feel like that is the best fat for animals on a ketogenic diet. Coconut oil is actually what happened to the table? The table disappeared. Oh, we had a table here. But anyway, coconut oil actually contains medium chain fatty acids, particularly caprylic acid, capric acid, and lauric acid. Now, medium chain fats actually gets converted into ketones at a very rapid rate, as opposed to long chain fats that's available in meat sources and fish oil. Now, it gets converted to ketones directly from the liver. It doesn't require pancreatic lipase or enzymes or bile acids to be converted. So it's a rapid source of energy. Now, MCT oils, the medium chain fatty acids in coconut oil were discovered back in 1960. And it was shown, the studies show that it was readily converted to ketones regardless of the blood glucose levels or what the animal or what the human being was eating. So this is why we feel like it is the best oil to give animals in a ketogenic diet.
Yeah, and I think too, Carmina, the thing about coconut oil is it's very easy on the dog's digestive system. Long chain fats, which you get from animal proteins, as we mentioned, from poultry, etc., they have a very different metabolic pathway when a dog eats a fat from meat. So when they eat fat from meat, they need bile acids. It'll go into their intestines. It'll need to be broken down and transported via chylomicrons. It goes to the lymphatic system of the dog. And then it goes to the adipose tissues. It goes through the blood to the adipose tissues, fat tissues, and the liver, and then eventually gets converted and used as energy in the liver, right? So that's kind of it's a longer digestive process when you're eating a long chain fat. Now, medium chain fats, because the molecules are so small, and we're talking about capric, caprylic, and lauric acid, it does not need chylomicrons to be broken down. It basically goes through the portal vein of the liver and goes directly to the liver. And you may have heard for medium chain fatty acids, the 3 that Carmina mentioned is capric, caprylic, and lauric acid. And for capric and caprylic acid, they're so small, they're considered like carbon. They only have 8 carbon atoms or 10 carbon atoms. So what happens is it gets converted to ketones, and in literally an hour and a half, your blood ketone levels is already fully elevated. So if you take a test after you do that, it's elevated in 1.5 hours. However, your body does assimilate it very quickly, and then it's gone after 3 hours. Now for lauric acid, it converts at a slightly slower rate. It'll convert it'll increase your blood ketone levels in 3 hours. But the great thing is it stays elevated for about 8 hours. So that's why lauric acid is very good. So you can see why coconut oil is just perfect for the keto diets.
The other thing too is these medium chain fatty acids, the ketones, can cross the blood-brain barrier and feed the brain, which is why it helps with cognitive dementia as well as seizures. Now, the ketones of lauric acid that are slower and converted to ketones, as Charisa said, in 3 hours, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and it's converted to brain ketones, which is actually different from blood ketones. The point is it feeds the brain, because that's what Alzheimer's is or cognitive dementia is. The brain actually feeds on ketones. That's the food for the brain.
Right.
Oh, there it is.
I wonder where that table went.
Yeah.
So here, as I said, so you can see the 3 medium chain fatty acids, and you can see that the blood ketone levels peak. Caprylic being the smallest in 1.5 hours, and capric in 1.5 hours, and the rate of assimilation is 3. And there, as I mentioned, lauric acid, the blood ketone levels will peak in 3 hours, and it's assimilated in 8.
But aside from the ketogenic and the slower, more direct metabolic process of coconut oil is also has antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal properties. Lauric acid is converted to monoglycerin monolard, which is antibacteria. Capric acid is converted to monocaprin. It's antiviral, antifungal. Same with caprylic acid. So it helps with oxidative stress. It actually helps with inflammation. So it's got more, I would say, therapeutic effects compared to a lot of other fats available. So aside from the ketosis, the rapid rate of ketosis for coconut oil, it does have other functions that are extremely beneficial for animals.
Right. So here are some tools we mentioned. So monitor your dog. So if you want to put them on a keto diet, you must monitor their ketone levels to make sure they are in a state of ketosis. So you can purchase a blood glucose ketone measuring device, or these strips. For myself, there's a website called KetoPet Sanctuary, which contains a wealth of information for this. And they actually have a keto diet calculator. So when you go there, it will help you calculate the percentages and calories needed for your specific dog. So they recommend the Abbott, I think it's the extra blood glucose ketone monitor. For myself, you can buy strips also at your Walgreens or your local pharmacy store. And that's very easy. Those are just the ketone strips, and you basically just insert it. I would like tap it in the urine. The pee.
But for this Abbott position, it also measures both the blood glucose and the blood ketone levels. It's very important to monitor the glucose levels. You can actually buy this on Amazon or go to their website and find places to purchase it. But we do recommend working with your veterinarian and your certified nutritionist when we're trying to put your dog on a keto diet, especially something which is the keto plan B or C that we talked about. Now, I have a dog, Fiona, like I mentioned, she's 6 years old. She's actually on a modified keto diet. I pretty much cover plan A for her for the ketogenic diet. She uses a lot of coconut oil. I use a lot of coconut oil for her. In fact, I had a friend come over to my house and she saw how much coconut oil she had. And she said, if I gave my dog, and my Chihuahuas, actually she weighs 6 pounds and she takes a lot of coconut oil. She is so used to it. It doesn't give her gastric upset. It doesn't give her pancreatitis, people, it's a false notion that coconut oil or fats can cause pancreatitis. It actually depends on the type of fat. And again, if it's oxidized or not. But because she's been tolerated and has had coconut oil most of her life since I got her, that's why her body's so accustomed to eating fats. And that's definitely helped her in so many ways.
Right. And I just want to mention too, we're talking about, obviously this is for pet parents and for dogs, but I just want to say we go into keto cycling and it is wonderful. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys out there, but I know for me, there's times when you have brain fog and you just feel like you just can't think that day or your energy is very low. I love going on a keto cycle. For some people, they wonder if the keto cycle, if the ketogenic diet is sustainable for a dog for long term. Now, if you do the basic or the very light plan, like we had mentioned, some people do keep their dog on keto diets for very long term.
Yeah.
For the very extreme plans, you want to work with your vet to make sure that you can stay on that keto diet for a long time. So I think that's about what we have. We wanted to leave time for questions just in case if you guys had, and we just want to make sure people know we're not vets, but we do know a lot about fats and we have had experience with them.
We use it on our animals extensively. And on ourselves as well. So anybody have questions?
I think I see a question here from Dana. Please discuss relative to dogs with pancreatitis for people fearful of fats flaring for pancreatitis. That's a very good question.
That's a great question.
And we get that all the time. So basically pancreatitis is when the pancreas are inflamed, right? For whatever reason, and they're excreting a lot of digestive enzymes for that. And there's so many causes of pancreatitis, and believe it or not, vets are seeing that a high carb sugar diet can be one of the causes of pancreatitis because carbs and starches naturally contain sugars, right? So that increases insulin secretion. So your pancreas are what the endotoxin, the endo, what are the cells? Oh, the Isle of Langerhans.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember my pancreas studies, but they secrete insulin, right? And when carbs and sugars are consumed in excess, insulin levels will rise and eventually creating a metabolic syndrome. So these are diet-induced diabetes, hypoglycemia, and cancers. So it shows that there's a risk of dogs to get pancreatitis. Diabetic dogs can get pancreatitis. So that's one thing, high carb, high sugars. And then cooked fats. Okay, cooked fats is a huge no-no for dogs because it will cause pancreatitis. As we talked about, fats oxidizing. So, and that's for an already inflamed pancreas, that's not a good thing.
Now, I also want to mention, people have asked us, can an animal with chronic pancreatitis, idiopathic pancreatitis go on a keto diet? The answer is yes, but make sure you don't give the oxidized cooked fats. And if you have a dog that's extremely sensitive to fats or he gets a lot of pancreatic flare-ups, then we would recommend using coconut oil, a virgin coconut oil specifically, because they don't require pancreatic lipase. They will not stress the pancreas. It will not cause pancreatitis. They don't require the pancreatic lipase to be digested. They are converted to ketones immediately in the liver. So medium chain fatty acids, in fact, veterinarians recommend medium chain fatty acids for animals with pancreatitis.
And PLE, protein losing enteropathy.
Yeah.
Because I had a Yorkie and they had, she needed to be in a very low fat diet. So just remember the coconut oil, different metabolic pathways, does not need pancreatic lipase to break it down. It doesn't need bile acids. It goes directly to the liver and is converted to ketones. So that's why you do need a lipid energy, and coconut oil is the wonderful fat for that.
Right. And to go further, if you have a dog that's extremely sensitive to fat, they have a chylomicron disease, for example, then we would recommend going a step further and choosing an MCT fat. MCT meaning it's got 93% medium chain fatty acids as opposed to virgin coconut oil, which is about 63% medium chain fatty acids. So we would suggest to even target that and use MCT fats as opposed to virgin coconut oil. Now, there's a question here. Is there a benefit to simply increasing total fats in a diet that has some low carbs in it? Thinking of commercially prepared diets. Yes, there definitely is a benefit to simply increasing the total fat in a diet. But you have to remember to check the calories. You don't have to have a calculator and check the calories. Look at your dog and see, are they getting fat? Are they getting too thin? For example, cats, we don't really recommend cats to go on a ketogenic diet because protein is vitally essential for cats. I have a cat who has chronic pancreatitis, but I do add a lot more MCT oil in his diet because I want to increase his fat content and put him in a state of ketosis. Again, coconut oil, medium chain fatty acids are actually the only fat that you can add to a diet that increases the level of ketones in the blood without even alternating their diet or the glucose. So yes, the answer to that is yes. And we have a question from Kimberly. She says, who's your favorite dog nutrition blogger? And obviously there's
many out there.
I love Kimberly
called Keep the Tail Wagging. So they have a lot of resources, both for raw diets. For some people who have not taken the step about to give their dog raw foods, that's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
Because she talks about raw foods and how to transition on that.
Right.
But let's see.
From Stephen, I don't really understand how a dog can get as much as 80% fat. Can you describe a typical meal? That's definitely a good question. Now, for this question,
what is the
again?
Question?
How can a dog get as much as 80% from fat? Can you describe a typical meal? Now, first of all, we have to remember when you start your dog on a ketogenic diet, do not just boom give 80%. Fat. You definitely have to start slow. Make sure they can tolerate, general fat. Typically, an ordinary diet for dogs have about 30% fat, I would say. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
That's a typical diet. So you would inch it up to 35% and inch it up to 40. So a typical meal for us when we do our dogs with that much fat in it would be, for example, we choose pork jowls or
pork belly.
Pork belly is good, or we do 80-20% beef. We use coconut fiber as a source of fiber or leafy greens. We do add extra coconut oil to up that fat diet. And we also include the omega-3s, the essential omega-3s, fish oil. So that's what our typical meal is like for an animal who is on 80% fat diet.
You'll be surprised how many meats there are or protein sources there are out there that has a lot of fat. So when you get the raw meat, don't trim the fat down. Just use that. So I think that's where people have a hard time wrapping their head around going that high on fat. But when you put all those really fatty meats, that's really good. That's why we say organ meats are great, but do it in moderation or it may push the protein level up. And go to the calculator and play around with it. That's what I did in the beginning. I would go to the keto calculator and enter certain foods and play around with it. And then you kind of can see how it works. And that is a goal I tell people. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, it has to be 82% fat. It has to be 17% calories from fat. Go as close as you can. And if you take those keto strips and put it in your dog's urine, you'll see that they will already go into a state of ketosis. And it's already very beneficial for a lot of those dogs.
And there's another question. Oh, Kimberly's giving a great example of how she fed her dog on a raw keto diet. So that's excellent feedback from Kimberly. Now from Karen, my 7-pound Papillon has been on a raw diet for 15 years. I have added your triplex MCT3 oil to her diet for poor skin and coat and allergies, only using 3 to 4 drops once a day. Her poops are loose when on the CocoTherapy MCT or higher fat raw. What should I do? Her skin and coat is horrible. So we recommend for animals that tend to react with diarrhea with a high fat diet, we recommend adding digestive enzymes, particularly lipase, because lipase is used to digest fats. So adding a
good digestive enzymes
would
well, because Karen, coconut oil all fats, all triglycerides are a blend of fatty acids. So it's not just MCT. There will be long chain fatty acids in it. For example, coconut oil has myristic acid, 18%, and that's found in beef.
But she's using the triplex MCT3 oil.
Oh yeah, but there's also
about
a
7%
long chain fats in that.
Right.
So remember, if your dog sounds like your papillon is very sensitive to fats, it would always be the long chain unsaturated fats that give the dog the hardest time digesting, because they do need the pancreatic lipase to break it down. So our advice is, as Carmina had mentioned, go get a really good digestive enzyme supplement. And
lipase.
That with lipase, and it may help, and it will also help with skin and coat too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And does coconut oil have anything to do with elevating a dog's ALT? That's
liver enzyme.
Yeah, liver enzyme, ALT. No. The quick answer is no, it doesn't. Actually, we've both had senior dogs with liver and kidney issues. Actually, it helps support liver and kidney issues just because it helps with the oxidative stress. So it doesn't. It's actually good to give for a dog with liver disease. And then Laura's asking, omega-3 fish oil and coconut oil. Oh, yes, we do like to do both. Now, when we say to use MCT oil or coconut oil, we're not saying to stop using omega-3s. We love to rotate oils. We like to combine oils. Again, if your dog's in the ketogenic diet, to use as many variety of oils and meat and veggies as possible.
Yeah,
hey, Diane.
And make sure that the source is good too.
Yes,
like with
source.
Everything we get, even for ourselves, make sure that your fish oil comes from a really good, trusted source. Make sure your coconut oil comes from a good, trusted source, because there's a lot of differences in the way these oils are extracted. Huge difference. Coconut oil is very tricky because they can use a lot of solvents and hexanes. So when people have told us, I'm so allergic to coconut oil, can't handle it, and they're not using our oil, we always say, well, try our oil and see. And typically we've had many stories where there is a difference because there's oil, the way it's processed.
Well, again, the processing affects the amount of medium chain fatty acids in coconut oil. The average medium chain fatty acid is about 64%, and long chain fatty acid 37%. But
chain.
Again, that varies depending on the quality of the coconut oil you use. Is there any more questions? I think that's about it for the questions. I don't know if there's any at the top that we missed. So let me check. Steve, it's a question of quantity, or are there particular foods to keep weight up when doing this? That's a good question. You definitely have to watch the calories, because being on a ketogenic diet, a lot of animals and people do lose weight. So for example, if your animal needs 500 calories to maintain weight and you're getting 80% of those calories or 80% of those calories from fat, then you definitely have to adjust the protein and the carbs to make sure you're getting 500 calories. Now,
I think building up calories from fats is not easy, but it's not that hard, because if you think about it, fats have the most calories per gram. So 1 gram of fat has 9 calories compared to 1 gram of protein that has 4 calories, and 1 gram of carbs also has 4 calories. So you can see that the calories per gram for fat is the highest, which is why it's pretty easy to get that. If you're eating a fatty meat, you will increase your calories intake way up. Yeah.
Yep. And then again, go to KetoPet Sanctuary. They do have a keto calculator. You can plug in your dog's weight and plug in, and it can recommend the percentages of fat and the types of fat. It's definitely a great resource as well. Let's see if there's any more questions. Oh, our dog has hemangiosarcoma. Does coconut oil have any blood thinning characteristics? I understand fish oil does. That's a great question. Coconut oil does not have any blood thinning characteristics, and your correct fish oil does. So you have to be careful with that.
Are we out of time? We see one more question from Laura.
She's got a yellow circle. That's cool. Do you give coconut oil with food, or can you give it alone as a treat? Let them lick it off the spoon. Oh, you can definitely give it as a treat.
As a treat.
Yeah, you don't have to give it with food.
Yeah. I mean, for my animals, not necessarily in keto, they love the coconut oil. It's just a great immune support for oil. So, as a treat, Laura, and for yourself too.
Can I use my MCT oil for my dog? Well, it depends on the MCT oil. So that's Piper's question. It depends on the MCT oil. Now, there's different kinds of MCT oils available. Some of them are made from palm kernel oil. Some is made from a combination of coconut oil and palm kernel oil. If it's got a combination of palm kernel oil, then we recommend not giving it to your dogs. It can be very harsh on the stomach, and it could cause nausea. You would like to choose an MCT oil that's made from virgin coconut oil and is unrefined. A good test would be to smell the MCT oil. So if the MCT oil does not have any smell, it has no smell at all, then it's most likely made from RBD oil, meaning
or it might be refined. It's for sure deodorized.
It's for sure RBD, refined bleach and deodorized. So that would use solvents such as hexane. We don't recommend using that for dogs. So make sure you look at the ingredients, smell the oil.
And contact the brand that manufacturer Pipers and see if, ask them about their oil. Try and get a certificate of analysis and see the medium chain fat levels in each of them. And they should be able to get that.
I mean, for us, taste it and smell it also. If it burns in your throat, and if it has, if it's RBD oil, if there's no smell, then that's definitely RBD oil.
So guys, we do have one additional question from Terry Miles. And Terry says, I brush my dog's teeth daily with coconut oil. Is this enough, or should I give him more? It's a 10-pound dog.
If you're brushing your teeth daily with coconut oil, that is great. If you do want to put them on a level of ketosis, then you definitely have to give more. I brush my dog is 6 pounds, and I actually brush her teeth with coconut oil, but I also add it to her diet, and she gets it as a treat. I had a friend that came to my house once, and she saw me when I was feeding Fiona, who's 6 pounds, and she was shocked at the amount of coconut oil I was adding to her diet.
But she said,
she said if I gave my dog that kind of coconut oil, she would just have explosive diarrhea.
But speaking of that though, Carmina, we got a letter from this person who had a golden retriever. Their golden retriever got into her bottle of coconut oil and licked the entire bottle in one go. So she was all panicked. She wrote us and said, is my dog going to have diarrhea? What's going to happen? Did he overdose in coconut oil? And we said, watch your dog carefully. He may have softer stool, so be ready. But guess what? The dog did not have diarrhea, licking the entire bottle of coconut oil.
That's
goes to show you how well that dog's
tolerated.
gut could handle, how well tolerated it is. Of course, not every dog's the same. They may have lipid disorders or GI issues, pancreatic insufficiency. So just be careful. But yes, it's very well tolerated.
I actually have a question for you ladies, if I can.
Sure.
So, we've had a speaker today talking about Ayurveda for dogs. You guys have spoken about keto for dogs. My question is it possible to kind of translate all of these human diets to our pets, or are there only certain types of diets and certain types of feeding regimes that can translate from a human perspective to a dog perspective or a pet perspective?
That's a really good question, because you're right. There's a lot of humanization going on in the pet industry. Like if it's good for humans, they translate it and just do it for pets. Again, It depends on the diet. It depends on the supplement or the food. Obviously, for example, there's a lot of foods that are toxic to dogs that humans can eat. So I definitely would be careful. I would research the ingredient, and I would research the type of diet. There has been a lot of studies of ketogenic diets for dogs. And so this is why they've translated it for animals, and a lot of veterinary nutritionists and oncologists and animals veterinarians have used it successfully for dogs. But again, if the diet is novel and new and unique, I would have to look at the ingredients and make sure that
because in the end, humans and dogs have different digestive systems. Our teeth looks different from their teeth. You know,
Yeah.
they can handle a lot higher bacterial load than we can. If we tried to eat their food, we'd be in big trouble too. You know what I mean? So there are
Yeah.
definitely differences in terms of even how we digest food differently. The length of our intestines are different from a dog's. Like ours
Yes.
could be, our small intestines are a lot longer than theirs is a little bit short. Or what is it, backwards? But anyway, so there are differences in body, physiological, metabolic differences. So you have to take all that into account.
In consideration.
Right. So just to clarify then, so we're effectively what you're saying is that just because we can eat it, it doesn't mean that the dogs can eat it, and we cannot translate all human diets and kind of food regimes to our pets, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Yep.
Lovely.
Exactly.
All right. So I've just had a little scale through. Doesn't seem to be any more questions. If there are any, guys, this is like your final shot. If you've got anything else to ask the ladies, now is your time. And failing that, once again, thank you very much for being here and offering us all of your wisdom on the keto diet for dogs. And hopefully we'll have you back on our event very, very soon. Big thank you to Sonia
for
as well
having
for
us.
putting it all together. Thank you guys for being here. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you, you too.